Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. ArchiCAD is the official BIM software of the EntreArchitect community. ArchiCAD BIM software enables design, collaboration, visualization, and project delivery no matter the project size or complexity. With flexible licensing options and a dedicated support team to guide us along the way, ArchiCAD is an ideal choice for firms and projects of any size. I encourage you to reach out and talk to the folks at Graphisoft by visiting our own dedicated webpage at graphisoft.com/us/EntreArchitect. There's even an exclusive special offer waiting for our EntreArchitect community. Go now to graphisoft.com/us/EntreArchitect and see how Graphisoft is positioned to help make your architecture firm a success. That's graphisoft.com/us/ www.entrearchitect. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entre Architect Podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. Bill Mandara, welcome to Entre Architect Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, I'm super excited about this. We are big fans of Mancini Duffy. You are the CEO. You're an architect, CEO, co-owner of Mancini Duffy Architects, a nationally recognized firm with a 100-year plus old history, tech-forward firm based in New York City. Throughout his career, Bill believed in having consistency of vision and values, that we should never put ourselves or our vision ahead of our clients. And that consistency has let him and his firm respond to clients quickly with clarity and authority. And I've been following Mancini for the last few years. It's really interesting from a business point of view as an entrepreneur architect to watch this transition of 100-plus-year-old firm transition into this cutting-edge, state-of-the-art technology firm, sort of leading the way for other architects to look at how architecture should be and will be practiced in the future. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, Bill.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
We've spoken twice with your colleagues. We've Bolanle William Ali has been on, the CFO, and Christian Giordano, the president, has also been on the show.
Two wonderful people, good friends.
Yeah, with Bola, we talked about specifically, we sort of got into the weeds about money. We talked about cash flow on episode, I don't remember which episode it was. We'll put, there it is, episode 394. So if you want to go back and listen to episode 394, we spoke about cash flow and how architects can manage cash flow. Christian was on episode 420, and we talked about sort of that transition, reinventing this 100-year-old architecture firm to be the leader in design technology. What I would love to talk to you today, Bill, about as CEO, as partners, right, with these other two people and others in the firm, about how do you take that grand vision? If you go back and listen to the episode with Christian has a giant vision, right? He is super enthusiastic and passionate about what he does. And he has big ideas. And your job as CEO is to work with Christian as partners and sort of get this organization to run and work on a daily basis, but also move in the direction of those visions that you want to achieve, right?
Absolutely. I always joke around that Christian's the balloon and I'm the anvil, which tends to work pretty well. But no, all kidding aside, it's true that it's I take it. Christian and I have a really great relationship. We're friends first of all, and I take it very seriously that it's my job to try and not dismiss some of these crazy ideas you have and figure out how to make them not so crazy and work with it. And also sometimes sometimes do inject a little bit of reality to the conversation. Yeah, sure. But we balance each other off very well, I think. And I'm lucky to have somebody like that to work with.
Yeah, I'd love to dive into the details of that, of how you work together and how you met each other and that whole thing. But before we do that, I want to learn more about you specifically, you personally. When did you discover your passion for architecture, and maybe talk about who or what inspired you to become an architect? Sure.
So I come from a long line of people in the construction industry. My great-grandfather came over here from Sicily. He did whatever odd jobs, labor. I think he was actually a laborer on the George Washington Bridge construction. My grandfather was a masonry contractor. And my dad, who I was very close with, was a general contractor. And as a kid, I would go to work. A lot of kids will do this, kind of tag along with your dad. And I tagged along with my dad all the time. We were pretty inseparable as a kid. And I spent a lot of time with him on his construction sites, and even with my grandfather on some of his sites too. And both my father and my grandfather always said, you can do this, but we don't want you to do what we do. We want you to be an architect. It was by circumstance, my father was of that certain age where he got called to serve his country, and he didn't really get to experience college the way some of us did. So it was also important to my dad that I did go to college.
Yeah.
So it's funny because it never really was a question in my life, and having two sons and watching them, they're both in college, and watching them kind of come to their journey of what they want to do is particularly interesting to me, because I just always knew what I was going to do, literally since a kid. I was probably like 10 years old, sitting in a construction trailer in New Jersey, tracing over architectural elevations that my grandfather would do. And it was just kind of the thing I did. And the ironic thing is that music is also a very big passion of mine. And there was a lot of time especially in my teenage years and early 20s, where I did the architecture thing to just kind of shut everybody up and say, like, okay, I'll go to school. I know this is what I'm supposed to do and everything. And then, in 5 years, when I'm famous and I'm playing for the Smashing Pumpkins or something, like, the architecture thing won't happen. But lo and behold, that never happened. And it came about apparent about 2 or 3 years into my career that I really need to start taking this seriously and dedicate myself more towards it. So, there was really no great moment where I discovered it. It was just kind of always there, and something I was going to do. And I'm grateful for that, because it's something that I love. Is that when I was a kid, I would drive around with my dad in his car around Bergen County, New Jersey, where we live and I currently live. And he would point to buildings and say, I worked on this building, when I was in high school. I was a bricklayer on this one. I built this building. And then later on, I would work on projects. I probably worked with my dad every summer from middle school throughout college in construction as I got older and a little more capable, doing everything from getting coffee to digging holes to actually, digging plumbing trenches with operating heavy equipment and carpentry and more sophisticated stuff. So I'm very grateful for that experience. And I'm grateful I can kind of do the same thing with my kids. We can, walk around the city or drive around New Jersey or other places and say, hey, that's something that, I didn't do it myself, but I certainly had a hand in that. Part of that came from it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's one of the best parts of being an architect is showing our kids and our friends and pointing at buildings and saying, hey, that's because I me being here, that is a result of me existing, right?
100%. The first actual structure that I worked on in my 20s was like a little, like almost like trailer thing for a milk factory in New Jersey. And it was maybe like a 25 by 10 building or a little shack or something. But when it was up, you could see it you could drive by and see it. And I remember being pretty proud. I was probably like 24, 25 years old. I was like, hey, I did that. And, we've come a little bit ways since then. But yeah, and I think it's also why it's funny that there are a lot of people that are musically inclined or also in architecture. I think it's the idea of creating something. I could not necessarily be listen, there's nothing against it. World needs all different types of jobs, but I couldn't be fulfilled doing something where I didn't create something.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned you grew up in Bergen County, and before we started recording, we made the connection that we literally grew up like one classroom away from one another. We went to high school together in Paramus, New Jersey, a year apart.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we were in some of the same classes.
I'm sure. Maybe the technical drafting and some of the other classes Mr. Schwartz. Yeah, exactly. So it's so funny to think about that. But not only did we go to high school together and had similar paths, I did those same things. My dad is an auto mechanic, but all his friends were contractors.
Right.
And so I did the same thing. As soon as I was old enough, I was working in construction with I call them my uncles, but they were, family friends, doing that same thing, working side by side and learning masonry and contracting and, framing and doing a lot of cleaning up and all the things that kids do on construction sites when they're working with their family. And then I had the same conversations with them that when I was interested in pursuing the field, they pushed me to architecture and said, you should go be an architect. Do you remember the moment where you did lock in with that? You said that you've always wanted to do it. Do you remember that moment where you decided, yes, that's what I'm going to do?
Sure. It was probably about 2 or 3 years after I had graduated and I was working. I was working on a project, and I was struggling a little bit because at the time I was playing in a band, and as 25-year-olds or whatever, however old I was, will tend to do. Your focus isn't always where it should be. And I was working on a particular project. It was an interiors job in New Jersey. I was working at a small firm in Jersey, and I bought a computer with some of my money at home, so I would take work home. And I remember taking a whole set of drawings. And I was like, all right, I got to get this right because I'm sick of getting yelled at every day. And a good friend of mine, I'm still friendly with, a guy named David, he gave me like 3 sets of drawings. He said, take these home. And I took them home, and I literally spent the entire week. And I told my girlfriend, my wife now at the time she was my girlfriend, I was like, look, we're not going out. We're not doing anything. I spent the whole weekend just studying it and doing it. And I came back, and it was a floppy disk. I saved it on a floppy disk and put it in and sent it to the plotter. And 6 hours later, after the plotter spit it out, I popped it down and printed them out. And I went to my boss's office, who was a real kind of, he was a very, very smart guy, and I learned a lot from him, but tough guy. And I remember I popped them down, and he looked at me and just said, good job. I don't have any comments. And he took his thing out and signed them. And I was like, all right, this is it. I'm good.
Yeah.
And I just kind of felt locked in, and I was like, okay, I can still do the other things in life that make me happy, but this is how I'm going to make money and support my family. And this is what I'm going to do for, I don't know, 90 hours a week or however.
Yeah. So what's the story from that moment, from recognizing that you wanted to be an architect working for somebody else to where you are now? You're running as CEO, one of the, most successful architecture firms in the country right now, Mancini Duffy. So
it's kind of a lot of right place at right time. I would say I've definitely lived a fairly charmed life. I was at that firm for about 11 years. I took another job at a firm. I had the opportunity to open an office in New Jersey for a New York City firm, and I did. And I had some people with me, and we had some success. And then 2009 happened, and that firm didn't really fare too well because most of the clients were financial based, financial corporate office clients, even though my background is a little more in base building, which we were doing. But the core line of business for that firm was commercial interiors for financial institutions. So obvious, some of their bigger clients were Lehman Brothers and Merrill Lynch. And so as that went, that firm was acquired by Mancini Duffy in 2011. And the first thing they did is like, well, why do we have this weird little outpost in Montclair, New Jersey? You guys come here and work in the city. And at the time, from 2009, when everything started going kind of haywire, I started doing a lot of side work. I was doing freelance jobs, you name it. I would do people's houses. I was doing 10, 15 apartments in the city by myself. I'd wake up Sunday morning, go meet somebody, do their apartment, measure it up, and be home in time to watch the Jet game. And it was kind of a weird place for me because by like that time, around 2012 or so, I was making just about as much money on my freelance stuff as I was at my day job. And my plan there was like, okay, I had 2 young kids and a wife, and I was in a house, and I was like, okay, I need to get this a little bit further along where I can afford to basically buy health insurance and all that other stuff, good stuff you need when you're a dad. And that was about the time I met Christian. And I remember a mutual friend, and I heard this guy, Christian, was coming here, and he had, and some people had some thoughts. I remember one guy actually absolutely hated Christian. It was funny. And it didn't make any sense it made more sense to me when I got to know that guy a little bit better. But he was telling me these horrible things. And then one night, a mutual friend says, hey, we're, got a bunch of guys going out to dinner, some steakhouse in the city. You want to go? And I'm like, sure. And, I'm standing there and having a beer, and I turn around and introduce myself, and it's Christian. I'm like, oh, geez, apparently we're going to work together. And man, we went out, we had so much fun. And it was, sometimes you meet people and you're instantly like, wow, I like this person. I get this person. They get me, and we get along. And literally we got each other. And it was funny. It was in about a week or so. He was like, dude, I can tell you don't love it here. Cause I was a square peg in a round hole. The old man city was very buttoned up. Yeah. It was very like, you must wear these pants and pressed. Yeah.
It was a 100-year-old traditional architecture firm.
Right. And I don't, that's not me. We grew up in the same town. Like, I barely, I haven't worn a tie since like 2001 or something. But he was like, you got to stick around. And then we talked, and we kind of came up with a plan. And there was a moment in time where I knew that I kind of, I kind of found my Felix to my Oscar. He, I had a guy who would give me these freelance jobs, and it's funny. He would always pick, oh, I have somebody has this apartment and they need somebody to sign and seal the drawings. And I would take them, I'd review them, I'd mark them up, and I'd put them, I'd clean them up, and I would sign and seal them, and they'd give me some money. And one time that actually happened, and the guy who he had was actually Christian. And it was funny because neither of us knew this, and then we just had a really good laugh at it. And it was kind of like, he was like, dude, you do all this side work? I'm like, you do all this side work? And we compared stories, and we were literally the exact same. We're very different people, but we're very similar. So yeah. And then from that, Christian kind of came up with this plan. He said, I think we can do this. I need help figuring it out, and I'm going to need, other people to do it. And we spent a lot of time, a lot of conversations, and and listen, a lot of credit goes to Tony Sharippa and Dina Frank, who owned the firm, the majority of the firm at the time. Christian came to them with the idea, and they were like, okay, you want to buy it? Make us an offer, figure it out. And it was on us to figure it out. And it took us a while to do that. And and we did it. And God bless Tony and Dina. They're great. They, especially Tony, was a really, Tony's been a mentor over the years. He's a great guy, and he's shared a lot of information. And yeah, we were able to buy the firm from him. I want to say that was 2017. And what was very gracious about, in particular, Tony as well, was that, once we knew this plan, it took a couple of years to get it ahead of time. So they kind of relinquished control of the firm to us. Obviously, they weren't going to let us, sell the place for a bag of magic beans or anything, but, and we had to kind of prove ourselves, but they relinquished a lot of the control. So we were able to start implementing changes here, like even just things like cultural changes and, redefining some of the staff and some of the ways things were done. So by way of example, Christian had an office, and I mean, I was given an office when I came here too, but it was actually like a windowless room that also housed like excess furniture left over from jobs or something. But Christian's office was nicer. But we gave one of the guys here, Michael Kipfer, who really spearheads our technology stuff. He's also a very talented architect, but he was like, hey, can you give up your office, and we're going to start this technology. We're going to use it for all this technology stuff. And Christian was like, yeah. And then we're sitting there having lunch, and Tony's like, what happened to Christian's office? Why wasn't he in the office? And we're like, we got it. So yeah, I mean, listen, it was a lot of some things. My mother would always tell me things happen because they're meant to be, and I truly believe that. It was very, very random that Christian and I met each other, and very fortunate. Yeah, likely not as random as we all think. Yeah, you never know. Listen, there's various, very varying theories on these types of things, but it's pretty cool because I was probably about 4 or 5 more side jobs or a couple bucks a year away from just saying, architecture firm, I'm done. I'm literally just going to work in my house and have some people do some drafting for me. Let's take a quick break to say thank you to our sponsors for their support of this episode. This episode is brought to you by FreshBooks. There's a lot to love about being an entrepreneur architect, right? But trying to figure out our financials on our own is not one of those things. Luckily, we have FreshBooks, the all-in-one accounting solution that's built for business owners like us. FreshBooks takes all the not-so-fun parts of running a business, from building and tracking invoices, to managing online payments, to organizing expenses, and automates them with features like the digital bills and receipt scanner, saving you up to 11 hours a week in the process. It's also super easy to get up and running. And the award-winning FreshBooks support team, they are always available to answer any questions along the way. Compare that to some of the other financial management tools out there. Try FreshBooks for free for 30 days, no credit card required. Go to freshbooks.com/architect to get started today. That's freshbooks.com/architect. So what will you do with 11 more hours each week? This episode is brought to you by arcat.com. We all have that one story, that one project that had such a unique situation that it required a solution that you had rarely considered before. We share these stories in private professional circles with our friends and our colleagues
But there has never been a collection of these stories of conflict and triumph all in one place until now. Detailed is a podcast series that features architects, engineers, builders, and manufacturers who share their insights and expertise as they highlight some of the most complex, interesting, and oddball building conditions that they have ever encountered, and the ingenuity it took to solve them. Join host Charisse Lakeside, aka CSI Kraken, a senior specifications writer at RDH Building Science, as she uncovers lessons learned to help you navigate similar challenges that may arise in your next project. Detailed, an original podcast by ARTCAT. Listen and subscribe right now at arcat.com/podcast. That's arcat.com/podcast. arcat.com/podcast. Detailed. Every building has a story. This episode is brought to you by the Entre Architect Community Annual Meeting, the business conference for small firm entrepreneur architects. Learn more at smallfirmconference.com. If you could build a business conference for small firm entrepreneur architects, what would it be? Since I launched Entre Architect back in 2012, I've been listening. I've been watching what members want and learning what we need. And in November, we will gather in Austin, Texas to connect, to celebrate, to honor, and to learn. The Entre Architect Community Annual Meeting was inspired, designed, and launched for you. We invited top speakers to share fast-paced, get-to-the-point TED Talk-like presentations that will provide you with the information that you need so that you can build the firm that you want. On day one of the conference, following a lineup of fantastic speakers, we'll discover the connection between mental health and our financial wealth with licensed clinical professional counselor Joyce Martyr. And then we'll be honoring 3 architect members of the community at the inaugural Entre Architect Honor Awards. On day 2, we'll hear from more great speakers, then dive deep into the successful future of our firms with Brian McCartney of ArcMark at a 90-minute strategic planning program. We'll have some fun building models with Kenya and Matt Forget of Sticks and Bricks, and we'll learn from an icon, Gene Cohn, founder of KPF, at the Day 2 keynote. We planned this event to start with an evening reception on Tuesday, November 1st, and end on Thursday afternoon on November 3rd, so that you'll have time to connect with friends post-event to discover the city of Austin and its amazing architectural sites on Friday and into the weekend. We've been approved by the AIA for 12.75 CEUs, and everyone will leave with a cool bag of swag. Whether you're a member of the Entre Architect Community Facebook group, a member of the Entre Architect Academy membership, or a small firm architect practicing anywhere in the world who wants and needs the support and connection of like-minded architects, the Entre Architect Community Annual Meeting Small Firm Business Conference is for you. With generous support from our friends at Monograph, visit smallfirmconference.com now for tickets, and we will see you in Austin this November. That's smallfirmconference.com. Please visit our sponsors today and thank them. Thank them for supporting you, the Entre Architect community. So when you decided to do that, to purchase the firm and take it over, and did you have big plans? Did you sort of have a vision on where this firm was going to go, and how are you going to reinvent this firm that's 100 years old?
We did. And again, Christian and I talked to each other. Well, I probably talked to him almost as much as I talked to my wife, but, and that's for a long time too. But yeah, we definitely, did we know everything we were going to do 10 years ago? No. But we certainly had a lot of plans, especially as far as diversifying the work in which we do. Christian's background was more in base building architecture and a lot of broadcast stuff. Mine is in base building architecture as well, with some interiors. And, I've done some of the less sexy projects over the year, the industrial stuff, the self-storage buildings, this and that, and things like that. So we deliberately wanted to diversify the firm. That was a goal we had initially. And one thing we actually did that is useful is we hired an executive coach, who, it's not for everybody, but it was a guy who had no understanding of what we do as architects. And it was actually perfect, because in architecture school, you have all these design classes where you learn how to make a potter's house and all this crazy stuff. And you have like one professional practice class,
Right.
which, basically teaches you how to read a contract, sort of. So we had this business coach who's an executive coach, and it really kind of took us through the ringer and made us develop a 1-page plan, and made us set, 3-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals, 20-year goals. And, I'm pretty proud to say most of those 3 and 5-year goals, we're pretty darn, we've either accomplished or kind of right knocking on the door. So it was a very deliberate thing that we did. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was painful, but it was definitely work to get there. It wasn't just sitting over a couple of drinks and, saying, oh, we should do this. But it's definitely paid dividends.
Did you know your roles right from the beginning?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So again, even Christian always came up more as the design end of things in his career, whereas I've always been either on the project management or technical architect side. I would always, even when I first came to Mancini, it was I kind of got slapped a label of project manager on me, but it was always, I would always say I'm really a project architect that manages projects. I'm not, I'm not necessarily 400 spreadsheet guy with a monitor that's turned in portrait mode. I like to get in there and, get like we were talking about. I've spent my childhood on construction sites, and I like to, I like detailing things and getting in there and making sure they're done. So it actually worked out great as far as roles, because I was, again, he was on the design end, I was on the technical and management end, and he doesn't give himself enough credit. He's managed plenty of projects too. So I think we were both like, a designer that managed projects and a project architect that managed. So it all kind of fell into place from there. And then with some of, with our executive coach and with a lot of these exercises we went through, there's roadmaps of where you fit in, and you go through various exercises. And quite frankly, it didn't take a lot of thinking. It was pretty apparent where the two of us belong. Yeah.
I mean, having spoken to Christian, very enthusiastic, like I said, very passionate, very visionary, has big ideas. How important is your role as sort of the practical, tactical guy to take those big ideas and come up with a plan on this is how we're actually going to do this on a day-to-day basis to get us to where you want to go?
Well, again, listen, I don't, I'm certainly not a person that likes to pat myself on the back, but it is important because, again, Christian has these big ideas and then he thinks about them. And then, you mentioned my other partner, Bola, as well. So a lot of times I think that I'm kind of a bridge between them, because Bola is our CFO, and she's very focused, as she should be, on finances and what things are going to cost and how that's regimented. And sometimes Christian will say stuff and Bola will be like, "This what?" And I'll be like, "No. Let me translate that for you." But yeah, it is
It's
important.
Funny that you're the translator between the design guy and the money person.
It's true. I like to think like I'm somewhere in between, but it is. And again, Christian and I have a great way of, having conversations about things and ideas. I'm the type of person that needs to put these things, map them out, whether it's in some sort of visual format, even if it's a spreadsheet or something, to map them out. And that's kind of what we do a lot of times. He'll come up with these ideas, and I'll be like, okay, I think that there's a way that might work. And I'll come back and say, okay, yeah, I think this can, what do you think? And then we'll work, we'll go through it together. And then honestly, there's some times where I'm like, you know what? I love you, brother, but this is just not going to work. It's a little too crazy. Or, that might be something we need to do 5 years now. But in all fairness, when Christian first came to me with the idea of buying the company, I was like, dude, you're nuts. We're not going to figure this out. And, here we are. And then again,
Yeah, that's interesting too. That it just seems so overwhelming, right? That giant idea of like, you're going to buy this 100-year-old firm and you're going to reinvent it and turn it into something completely different. Like,
Yeah.
really? How are you going to do that?
It is, and that's why, like, for me, when I hear, when I hear some of these big ideas, even not just from Christian, just in general, even if I have an idea, I need to break it down into smaller pieces that I can understand.
Right.
And again, I need to see things in somewhat of a linear fashion of how you can get there. And it makes it a lot more digestible, right? When you're like, okay, I'm not gonna eat the whole pot of sauce, but I could start with, I could start over here with some tomatoes, and you'll get it at some point.
Yeah, I find that those three positions, right? The person in charge of the money, the person in charge of design and creativity, and a person in charge of management and operations is really important as firms get larger, right? Small firms, yes. A lot of the people we're talking to, those roles are managed by one person or two people. Mm-hmm. But as firms grow, those positions are really important. You look at the most successful firms in history of American, recent history of American architecture, SOM, KPF, HOK. There's three letters for a reason, because there were three partners who held those roles, right? That I do another podcast called Build Smart, that I'm a co-host with Patrick McLamey, former CEO of HOK. And we did, season 1 was the full story of HOK, and that's the story, right? Of these three partners who each had their role, taking it and growing it into a bigger, more successful firm. KPF, I've had that same conversation with Gene Cohn. Same thing. Gene Cohn is the guy, the networker, right? Peterson is the design guy. Fox was the money guy. And so it's so important to have those roles accounted for, even if it's just one person, but to have somebody focused on the business, somebody focused on the money, and somebody focused on design is really important, isn't it?
100% agreed. And again, like I said, I'm not a particular religious person, but things happen for a reason. And literally the two people, it's funny. I look at you'll hear your phone, your text messages. I have both of my sons and my wife pinned as conversations, and then the next two are Christian and Bola, and then a group text with the three of us. And that group text is probably like the most. That one and the group text with my wife and kids are probably the two most active texts I have. I really, the most important thing is that we all really like each other. We care about each other. We all know each other's families. We all know each other's spouses. We know each other's kids. And because of that, it's not, I've been at firms where there's been some pretty dysfunctional leadership.
Yeah.
Where there's factions, and it's like, well, I'm not going to do this because this person, I don't like that person. I'm just going to deliberately sabotage this idea. I've literally seen those conversations, and that just doesn't exist here. And I think it doesn't exist mostly because we're all very different people. I mean, Bola grew up in Nigeria. I grew up with you in Paramus, and Christian's not too far off in South Jersey.
Yeah.
We're very different people, but we all have very similar values. We're all family people, and we all care about each other and our families, and everybody here as well. So when you're on the same page like that, it makes all this stuff a lot easier. And it does make it, when there are difficult times or difficult decisions that have to be made or things you have to figure out, it does make it a lot easier. So I would say, first and foremost, I'm very thankful and grateful that I have two people that are, really just wonderful people.
Yeah. Yeah. That, they have your back, that you're on the same page. That's super important. And do you see that trickles down into the culture of the firm, that the leadership is on the same page, and the leadership has respect for one another, and the leadership covers, respects one another? How does that sort of trickle down into the culture? And if so, does it also need to be intentional that it trickles down into the culture of the rest of the firm?
Yes. And yes, it is definitely part of our culture here. So, I mean, we've only talked to each other for a little while here, but I'm a pretty outgoing, open person. There's not a lot to hide, and so is everybody here. So we're I like to get to know people here on more of a personal level. And we have, we hold a lot of things. We invite people's families once a year. We'll have like a big summer party, either at my house or Christian's house. And you get to know people's families, and that stuff actually makes a big difference, I
Yeah.
think, because it's not just, the person I see every day that's over there, and there's some kind of like person that does stuff and whatever. When you get to know people and what they, oh, this person might be a great barbecuer or something, and you get to know people, and you get to know their families,
Yeah.
and what's important to them and what makes them tick. And it's not just from us. In general, everybody in the firm, you start to have you start to care differently about what you do and how that affects the people that you know. And it is 100% intentional. And I'm leaving out our other partners too in some of these comments. They're both Scott and Jessica. They're also great people. And again, it all carries through. I always say that when I don't interview a lot of people anymore, but I was involved in a lot of hiring here, which is funny because it was like, oh, you like all the people you work with? I'm like, I hired most of them. But at any rate, when I speak to somebody to hire, we just actually hired somebody, a new director of life sciences. It was through a mutual friend, and we had a phone conversation. And I think like 10 minutes into the conversation, we just went off a tangent, started talking about like 90s grunge bands. And I was like, all right, this is somebody. I'm going to assume that they're, we'll go and double check it, but I'm going to assume that, they know what they're doing. Their record speaks for itself, and they have the work product, and they're talented. But this is somebody that, we can hang with, and we can, this is a good person that can come here. And that to me is like more important than almost anything. I mean, again, it's important that people do the job, people are talented, and people care about it. But if you get people that have the right attitude and are people that will all get along with each other and respect each other and like each other, all that stuff just kind of works itself out.
Yeah. So make sure that they're sort of all the boxes are checked in terms of the role and responsibilities that they're going to have. And then you work your way to learning a little bit more about them, making sure that the character and the personality and the values are in alignment with the culture of the firm.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't say enough about the culture. And that was that was definitely the first thing that Christian and I tackled here. And that was really kind of in the infancy of our leadership here, was changing the culture of the firm.
Yeah. Christian talked about that in pretty in depth with his conversation with me about how hard.
Yeah, so I won't be redundant, but it was intentional.
People who will listen to this who haven't listened to this, so I'd love to sort of get your take on it.
Yeah, no, listen, it was very intentional. We made a point to, the natural ebb and flow of an architecture firm. Over the years, some people leave, some people come, but as we brought people in, it was a combination of looking to our past and people that we enjoyed working with that we brought back. So by way of example, I have two people here. One person, Virgilio, he's one of my best friends. We're in each other's weddings. He was my college roommate. I met him, first day of college. I brought him back. There's another gentleman here named Peja, who him and I worked together in 2002 or something like that. And, I called him up like, hey man, what are you doing? You want to come home? You want to come home? And he's like, yep. And so it was a combination, and Christian's done that too with people too. So it was a combination of reaching back to people that we recognized in our careers that were, again, we're working on the assumption that I didn't assume it at the time, but working on the baseline. I shouldn't say assumption, the baseline that all these people are talented and can do great work. Right. Just reaching back to people that we worked with that we really thought were great people, we really enjoyed, and then identifying the people that were here who are also awesome people, great people, and then who do you know? And who do you know? So I mentioned Michael Kipfer before. He just brought in somebody he knew from a million years ago that he worked with, and it was about a year ago. He's like, I'd like to bring a friend of mine in, and I was, yeah, do it. And those are our most successful hires. We have actually we have a lot of Bergen County kids here from NJIT, but there's there's a guy here is a young guy. His name is Matt. He's awesome. His dad ran the hockey program in town that my son played in, and I was like, wow, he's a great guy. Bring him in here. So it's really identifying the baseline that they have talent, identifying people that are going to be cool and can fit the mold and can hang with us and are good people.
Yeah. It's so fun to listen to your story, knowing, having spoken with Christian and Bola, to sort of look at Mancini Duffy as this renovation of this old, this like, I see it almost like a boat, right? That there was this old boat that did its job in its day, and then you guys came along and saw the vision of where that boat can go, and you sort of renovated the boat, and then invited a bunch of cool people to jump in the boat with you, and then we're going to this cool destination. And
absolutely, I love it. It's
so fun to hear, and inspirational to hear. People who are listening, whether you are needing to reinvent what you already have, or starting your new firm, these are such important things to understand. That design matters, and getting your operations right matters. Culture is so important to make sure that all of that stuff works right.
100%. I mean, listen, we're in New Jersey as well, but we're headquartered here in New York City. There's a lot of really, really talented people in the architect, heck, in the real estate industry. There's a lot of really talented people here. So it's okay. We can weed through, and listen, there's people that we've talked to and we've met and we've said, listen, great, super talented, but not for us. Not for us. Yeah. You're not it's just not going to work, and that's okay. You can be there. And listen, I mean, I understand and realize how fortunate I am to be in the position that I am. And I take it very seriously, which is why when I meet people, or I come across people, or I think of people that I've worked with or known in the past, and I have the opportunity to give them an opportunity, I always do whatever I can to do it, because I recognize that, I'm in a very, very fortunate position to be here right now. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. Bill, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you the one thing that I ask everybody. Like I had mentioned, primarily, most of the people listening are architects. A lot of them are small firm architects running businesses. Hearing your story and the story of Mancini Duffy is inspirational. What's one thing that you would suggest that a small firm architect can do today that could build their business for tomorrow?
Well, listen, you can go the whole route we went with the coach and learn more about business, but I would be a little more esoteric than that. And I would just say, just be yourself. Figure out who you are and be that person. Don't aspire to be the next this, the next that, or run copy that, or take over this one, just be yourself, find what you're good at, and just own it and be that person. And people, unless you're a horrible person, which most people aren't, but
don't be
if you're a horrible person,
you need to change.
My advice, then be somebody else. But but in general, if you're your own self and you're genuine, you're going to be more, everything you do is going to be like that. Everything you do is going to be genuine. People are going to want to work for you. And drop the facade, I guess, to throw an unfortunate architectural there. But yeah, seriously, just be yourself. It's the best way to go.
That's great advice. And really, you see that reflected in the firm that you're running. So I appreciate that. His name is Bill Mandara. The firm name is Mancini Duffy. You could learn more about Mancini and what they're doing at manciniduffy.com. We'll have that link on the show notes. Bill, I appreciate you for what you're doing at Mancini Duffy. For leading the way in this profession and showing us how a firm can be run successfully, not only from the outside, but also from the inside. I appreciate you for doing that and for coming by here and sharing your knowledge at Entre Architect Podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate those kind words. And this has been a lot of fun.
If you liked this episode of Entre Architect Podcast, please share a rating, write a review, and share a link to this episode with a friend. That's how Entre Architect has grown to serve thousands more architects just like you. Share a rating, write a review, and share a link to this episode with a friend. Links to our sponsors and all the resources we discussed today are available at the show notes for this episode, found at entrearchitect.com/podcast. Entre Architect is a member of the Gable Media Podcast Network, the network dedicated to architects, engineers, and construction pros. Listen and subscribe to all the shows at gablemedia.com. That's GABL media.com. And visit smallfirmconference.com for more information about our lineup of speakers. Check out the agenda and purchase your tickets for the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting, the business conference for small firm entrepreneur architects. We do have a few tickets still available, but we're almost sold out. So visit smallfirmconference.com and register today. And before we wrap up, a special thank you to our partners at Graphisoft for helping our community of architects make the transition to BIM with ArchiCAD software. Go now to graphisoft.com/US/EntreArchitect and see how Graphisoft is positioned to help make your architecture firm a success. Visit graphisoft.com/US/EntreArchitect to learn more. Thank you for listening to this episode of the EntreArchitect Podcast. My name is Mark Arlepage. Love, learn, and share what you know.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark Arlepage, founder of EntreArchitect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.